This is a continuation of A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, comprising chapters 28 and 29. Chapter 28. As we moved out through the town, it was empty in the rain and the dark, except for columns of troops and guns that were going through the main street. There were many trucks too, and some carts going through on other streets and converging on the main road. When we were out past the tanneries onto the main road, the troops, the motor trucks, the horse-drawn carts, and the guns were in one wide, slow-moving column. We moved slowly but steadily in the rain, the radiator cap of our car almost against the tailboard of a truck that was loaded high, the load covered with wet canvas. Then the truck stopped. The whole column was stopped. It started again, and we went a little farther, then stopped. I got out and walked ahead, going between the trucks and carts and under the wet necks of the horses. The block was farther ahead. I left the road, crossed the ditch on a footboard, and walked along the field beyond the ditch. I could see the stalled column between the trees in the rain as I went forward across from it in the field. I went about a mile. The column did not move, although on the other side, beyond the stalled vehicles, I could see the troops moving. I went back to the cars. This block might extend as far as Udine. Piani was asleep over the wheel. I climbed up beside him and went to sleep too. Several hours later, I heard the truck ahead of us grinding into gear. I woke Piani and we started, moving a few yards, then stopping, then going on again. It was still raining. The column stalled again in the night and did not start. I got down and went back to see Amo and Bonello. Bonello had 2 sergeants of engineers on the seat of his car with him. They stiffened when I came up. They were left to do something to a bridge, Bonello said. They can't find their unit, so I gave them a ride. With the Sir Lieutenant's permission. With permission, I said. The lieutenant is an American, Bonello said. He'll give anybody a ride. One of the sergeants smiled. The other asked Bonello if I was an Italian from North or South America. He's not an Italian. He's North American English. The sergeants were polite but did not believe it. I left them and went back to Oimo. He had 2 girls on the seat with him and was sitting back in the corner and smoking. Barto, I said. He laughed. Talk to them, Tenente, he said. I can't understand them. Hey! He put his hand on the girl's thigh and squeezed it in a friendly way. The girl drew her shawl tight around her and pushed his hand away. Hey, he said, tell the Tenente your name and what you're doing here. The girl looked at me fiercely. The other girl kept her eyes down. The girl who looked at me said something in a dialect I could not understand a word of. She was plump and dark and looked about 16. Sorella, I asked and pointed at the other girl. She nodded her head and smiled. All right, I said and patted her knee. I felt her stiffen away when I touched her. The sister never looked up. She looked perhaps a year younger. Amo put his hand on the elder girl's thigh and she pushed it away. He laughed at her. Good man, he pointed at himself. Good man, he pointed at me. Don't you worry. The girl looked at him fiercely. The pair of them were like 2 wild birds. Ah! What does she ride with me for if she doesn't like me? Amo asked. They got right up in the car the minute I motioned to them. He turned to the girl. Don't worry, he said. No danger of using the vulgar word. No place for... I could see she understood the word, and that was all. Her eyes looked at him very scared. She pulled the shawl tight. Car all full, Amo said. No danger of... no place for... Every time he said the word, the girl stiffened a little. Then, sitting stiffly and looking at him, she began to cry. I saw her lips working, and then tears came down her plump cheeks. Her sister, not looking up, took her hand, and they sat there together. The older one, who had been so fierce, began to sob. I guess I scared her, Amo said. I didn't mean to scare her. Bartolomeo brought out his knapsack and cut off 2 pieces of cheese. Here, he said. Stop crying. The older girl shook her head and still cried, but the younger girl took the cheese and commenced to eat. After a while, the younger girl gave her sister the 2nd piece of cheese, and they both ate. The older sister still sobbed a little. She'll be all right after a while, Amo said. An idea came to him. Virgin? He asked the girl next to him. She nodded her head vigorously. Virgin too? He pointed to the sister. Both the girls nodded their heads, and the elder said something in dialect. That's all right, Bartolomeo said. That's all right. Both the girls seemed cheered. I left them sitting together with Amo sitting back in the corner and went back to Piani's car. The column of vehicles did not move, but the troops kept passing alongside. It was still raining hard, and I thought some of the stops in the movement of the column might be from cars with wet wiring. More likely they were from horses or men going to sleep. Still, traffic could tie up in cities when everyone was awake. It was the combination of horse and motor vehicles. They did not help each other any. The peasants' carts did not help much either. Those were a couple of fine girls with Bardo. A retreat was no place for two virgins. Real virgins. Probably very religious. If there were no war, we would probably all be in bed. In bed, I lay me down my head. Bed and board. Stiff as a board in bed. Catherine was in bed now, between two sheets, over her and under her. Which side did she sleep on? Maybe she wasn't asleep. Maybe she was lying thinking about me. Blow, blow, you western wind. Well, it blew, and it wasn't the small rain, but the big rain down that rained. It rained all night. You knew it rained down that rained. Look at it. Christ, that my love were in my arms and I in my bed again. That my love Catherine, that my sweet love Catherine down might rain. Blow her again to me. Well, we were in it. Everyone was caught in it, and the small rain would not quiet it. Good night, Catherine, I said out loud. I hope you sleep well. If it's too uncomfortable, darling, lie on the other side, I said. I'll get you some cold water. In a little while, it will be morning, and then it won't be so bad. I'm sorry he makes you so uncomfortable. Try and go to sleep, sweet. I was asleep all the time, she said. You've been talking in your sleep. Are you all right? Are you really there? Of course I'm here. I wouldn't go away. This doesn't make any difference between us. You're so lovely and sweet. You wouldn't go away in the night, would you? Of course I wouldn't go away. I'm always here. I come whenever you want me. Piani said, They've started again. I was dopey, I said. I looked at my watch. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I reached back behind the seat for a bottle of the Barbera. You talked out loud, Piani said. I was having a dream in English, I said. The rain was slacking and we were moving along. Before daylight we were stalled again, and when it was light we were at a little rise in the ground, and I saw the road of the retreat stretched out far ahead, everything stationary except for the infantry filtering through. We started to move again, but seeing the rate of progress in the daylight, I knew we were going to have to get off that main road some way and go across country if we ever hoped to reach Udine. In the night, many peasants had joined the column from the roads of the country, and in the column there were carts loaded with household goods. There were mirrors projecting up between mattresses and chickens and ducks tied to carts. There was a sewing machine on the cart ahead of us in the rain. They had saved the most valuable things. On some carts, the women sat huddled from the rain, and others walked beside the carts, keeping as close to them as they could. There were dogs now in the column, keeping under the wagons as they moved along. The road was muddy, the ditches at the side were high with water, and beyond the trees that lined the road, the fields looked too wet and too soggy to try to cross. I got down from the car and worked up the road away, looking for a place where I could see ahead to find a side road we could take across country. I knew there were many side roads, but did not want one that would lead to nothing. I could not remember them because we had always passed them bowling along in the car on the main road, and they all looked much alike. Now I knew we must find one if we hoped to get through. No one knew where the Austrians were nor how things were going, but I was certain that if the rain should stop and planes come over and get to work on that column, that it would be all over. All that was needed was for a few men to leave their trucks, or a few horses be killed to tie up completely the movement on the road. The rain was not falling so heavily now, and I thought it might clear. I went ahead along the edge of the road, and when there was a small road that led off to the north between two fields with a hedge of trees on both sides, I thought that we had better take it and hurried back to the cars. I told Piani to turn off and went back to tell Bonello and Amo. If it leads nowhere, we can turn around and cut back in, I said. What about these? Bonello asked. His two sergeants were beside him on the seat. They were unshaven but still military-looking in the early morning. They'll be good to push, I said. I went back to Amo and told him we were going to try it across country. What about my virgin family? Amo asked. The two girls were asleep. They won't be very useful, I said. You ought to have someone that could push. They could go back in the car, Amo said. There's room in the car. All right if you want them, I said. Pick up somebody with a wide back to push. Bersaglieri, Imo smiled. They have the widest backs. They measure them. How do you feel, Tenente? Fine. How are you? Fine, but very hungry. There ought to be something up that road and we will stop and eat. How's your leg, Tenente? Fine, I said. Standing on the step and looking up ahead, I could see Piani's car pulling out onto the little side road and starting up it, his car showing through the hedge of bare branches. Bonello turned off and followed him, and then Piani worked his way out, and we followed the two ambulances ahead along the narrow road between hedges. It led to a farmhouse. We found Piani and Bonello stopped in the farmyard. The house was low and long, with a trellis with a grapevine over the door. There was a well in the yard, and Piani was getting up water to fill his radiator. So much going in low gear had boiled it out. The farmhouse was deserted. I looked back down the road. The farmhouse was on a slight elevation above the plain, and we could see over the country and saw the road, the hedges, the fields, and the line of trees along the main road where the retreat was passing. The two sergeants were looking through the house. The girls were awake and looking at the courtyard, the well, and the two big ambulances in front of the farmhouse, with 3 drivers at the well. One of the sergeants came out with a clock in his hand. "Put it back," I said. He looked at me, went in the house, and came back without the clock. "Where's your partner?" I asked. "He's gone to the latrine." He got up on the seat of the ambulance. He was afraid we would leave him. "What about breakfast, Tenente?" Bonello asked. "We could eat something. It wouldn't take very long." "Do you think this road going down on the other side will lead to anything?" "Sure." "All right, let's eat." Piani and Bonello went in the house. "Come on," Amos said to the girls. He held his hand to help them down. The older sister shook her head. They were not going into any deserted house. They looked after us. "They are difficult," Amos said. We went into the farmhouse together. It was large and dark, an abandoned feeling. Bonello and Piani were in the kitchen. "There's not much to eat," Piani said. "They've cleaned it out." Bonello sliced a big white cheese on the heavy kitchen table. "Where was the cheese?" "In the cellar. Piani found wine too and apples." "That's a good breakfast." Piani was taking the wooden cork out of a big wicker-covered wine jug. He tipped it and poured a copper pan full. "It smells all right," he said. "Find some beakers, Bardo." The 2 sergeants came in. "Have some cheese, sergeants," Bonello said. "We should go," one of the sergeants said, eating his cheese and drinking a cup of wine. "We'll go, don't worry," Bonello said. "An army travels on its stomach," I said. "What?" asked the sergeant. "It's better to eat." "Yes, but time is precious." "I believe the bastards have eaten already," Piani said. The sergeants looked at him. They hated the lot of us. "You know the road?" one of them asked me. "No," I said. They looked at each other. "We would do best to start," the first one said. "We are starting," I said. I drank another cup of the red wine. It tasted very good after the cheese and apple. "Bring the cheese," I said, and went out. Bonello came out carrying the great jug of wine. "That's too big," I said. He looked at it regretfully. "I guess it is," he said. "Give me the canteens to fill." He filled the canteens and some of the wine ran out on the stone paving of the courtyard. Then he picked up the wine jug and put it just inside the door. "The Austrians can find it without breaking the door down," he said. "We'll roll," I said. "Piani and I will go ahead." The 2 engineers were already on the seat beside Bonello. The girls were eating cheese and apples. Imo was smoking. We started off down the narrow road. I looked back at the 2 cars coming and the farmhouse. It was a fine, low, solid stone house, and the ironwork of the well was very good. Ahead of us, the road was narrow and muddy, and there was a high hedge on either side. Behind, the cars were following closely. Chapter 29. At noon, we were stuck in a muddy road, about, as nearly as we could figure, 10 kilometers from Udine. The rain had stopped during the forenoon, and 3 times we had heard planes coming, seen them pass overhead, watched them go far to the left, and heard them bombing on the main high road. We had worked through a network of secondary roads and had taken many roads that were blind, but had always, by backing up and finding another road, gotten closer to Udine. Now, Amo's car, in backing so that we might get out of a blind road, had gotten into the soft earth at the side, and the wheels, spinning, had dug deeper and deeper until the car rested on its differential. The thing to do now was to dig out in front of the wheels, put in brush so that the chains could grip, and then push until the car was on the road. We were all down on the road around the car. The 2 sergeants looked at the car and examined the wheels. Then they started off down the road without a word. I went after them. "Come on," I said. Cut some brush." "We have to go," one said. "Get busy," I said, "and cut brush." "We have to go," one said. The other said nothing. They were in a hurry to start. They would not look at me. "I order you to come back to the car and cut brush," I said. The one sergeant turned. "We have to go on. In a little while you will be cut off. You can't order us. You're not our officer." "I order you to cut brush," I said. They turned and started down the road. "Halt," I said. They kept on down the muddy road, the hedge on either side. "I order you to halt," I called. They went a little faster. I opened up my holster, took the pistol, aimed at the one who had talked the most, and fired. I missed, and they both started to run. I shot 3 times and dropped one. The other went through the hedge and was out of sight. I fired at him through the hedge as he ran across the field. The pistol clicked empty and I put in another clip. I saw it was too far to shoot at the second sergeant. He was far across the field, running, his head held low. I commenced to reload the empty clip. Bonello came up. "Let me go finish him," he said. I handed him the pistol, and he walked down to where the sergeant of engineers lay face down across the road. Bonello leaned over, put the pistol against the man's head, and pulled the trigger. The pistol did not fire. "You have to cock it," I said. He cocked it and fired twice. He took hold of the sergeant's legs and pulled him to the side of the road, so he lay beside the hedge. He came back and handed me the pistol. "The son of a bitch," he said. He looked toward the sergeant. "You see me shoot him, Tenente?" "We've got to get the brush quickly," I said. "Did I hit the other one at all?" "I don't think so," Amo said. "He was too far away to hit with a pistol." "The dirty scum," Piani said. We were all cutting twigs and branches. Everything had been taken out of the car. Bonello was digging out in front of the wheels. When we were ready, Amo started the car and put it into gear. The wheels spun round, throwing brush and mud. Bonello and I pushed until we could feel our joints crack. The car would not move. "Rock her back and forth, Bardo," I said. He drove the engine in reverse, then forward. The wheels only dug in deeper. Then the car was resting on the differential again, and the wheels spun freely in the holes they had dug. I straightened up. "We'll try her with a rope," I said. "I don't think it's any use, Tenente. You can't get a straight pull." "We have to try it," I said. "She won't come out any other way." Piani's and Bonello's cars could only move straight ahead down the narrow road. We roped both cars together and pulled. The wheels only pulled sideways against the ruts. "It's no good!" I shouted. "Stop it!" Piani and Bonello got down from their cars and came back. Imo got down. The girls were up the road about 40 yards, sitting on a stone wall. "What do you say, Tenente?" Bonello asked. "We'll dig out and try once more with the brush," I said. I looked down the road. It was my fault. I had led them up here. The sun was almost out from behind the clouds, and the body of the sergeant lay beside the hedge. "We'll put his coat and cape under," I said. Bonello went to get them. I cut brush, and Amo and Piani dug out in front and between the wheels. I cut the cape, then ripped it in two, and laid it under the wheel in the mud, then piled brush for the wheels to catch. We were ready to start, and Amo got up on the seat and started the car. The wheels spun, and we pushed and pushed, but it wasn't any use. "It's Ed," I said. "Is there anything you want in the car, Bardo?" Imo climbed up with Bonello, carrying the cheese and 2 bottles of wine and his cape. Bonello, sitting behind the wheel, was looking through the pockets of the sergeant's coat. "Better throw the coat away," I said. "What about Bardo's virgins?" "They can get in the back," Piani said. "I don't think we are going far." I opened the back door of the ambulance. "Come on," I said. "Get in." The 2 girls climbed in and sat in the corner. They seemed to have taken no notice of the shooting. I looked back up the road. The sergeant lay in his dirty, long-sleeved underwear. I got up with Piani and we started. We were going to try to cross the field. When the road entered the field, I got down and walked ahead. If we could get across, there was a road on the other side. We could not get across. It was too soft and muddy for the cars. When they were finally and completely stalled, the wheels dug into the hubs. We left them in the field and started on foot for Udine. When we came to the road which led back toward the main highway, I pointed down it to the 2 girls. "Go down there," I said. "You'll meet people." They looked at me. I took out my pocketbook and gave them each a 10 lira note. "Go down there," I said, pointing. "Friends, family." They did not understand, but they held the money tightly and started down the road. They looked back as though they were afraid I might take the money back. I watched them go down the road, their shawls close around them, looking back apprehensively at us. The three drivers were laughing. "How much will you give me to go in that direction, Tenente?" Bonello asked. "They're better off in a bunch of people than alone if they catch them," I said. "Give me 200 lire and I'll walk straight back toward Austria," Bonello said. "They'd take it away from you," Piani said. "Maybe the war will be over," Amo said. We were going up the road as fast as we could. The sun was trying to come through. Beside the road were mulberry trees. Through the trees I could see our two big moving vans of cars stuck in the field. Piani looked back too. "They'll have to build a road to get them out," he said. "I wish to Christ we had bicycles," Bonello said. "Do they ride bicycles in America?" Amo asked. "They used to." "Here it is a great thing," Amo said. "A bicycle is a splendid thing." "I wish to Christ we had bicycles," Bonello said. "I'm no walker." "Is that firing?" I asked. I thought I could hear firing a long way away. "I don't know," Amo said. He listened. "I think so," I said. "The first thing we will see will be the cavalry," Piani said. "I don't think they've got any cavalry." "I hope to Christ not," Bonello said. "I don't want to be stuck on a lance by any cavalry." "You certainly shot that sergeant, Tenente," Piani said. We were walking fast. "I killed him," Bonello said. "I never killed anybody in this war, and all my life I've wanted to kill a sergeant." "You killed him on the sight all right," Piani said. "He wasn't flying very fast when you killed him." "Never mind. That's one thing I can always remember. I killed that of a sergeant." "What will you say in confession?" Amo asked. "I'll say, 'Bless me, Father, I killed a sergeant.'" They all laughed. "He's an anarchist," Piani said. "He doesn't go to church." "Piani's an anarchist too," Bonello said. "Are you really anarchists?" I asked. "No, Tenente. We're socialists. We come from Imola." "Haven't you ever been there?" "No." "By Christ, it's a fine place, Tenente. You come there after the war, and we'll show you something." "Are you all socialists?" "Everybody." "Is it a fine town?" "Wonderful. You never saw a town like that." "How did you get to be socialists?" "We're all socialists. Everybody is a socialist. We've always been socialists." "You come, Tenente. We'll make you a socialist too." Ahead, the road turned off to the left, and there was a little hill, and beyond a stone wall, an apple orchard. As the road went uphill, they ceased talking. We walked along together, all going fast against time. This concludes the 10th part of 16 total of A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, produced by Best Audiobooks for free.